QURS. 4 letters. That is all a ticker symbol is. And this channel got 2 of them in the wrong order. Back in March, we published a video about a company called EverNorth. And in the description, we told you it was heading to the NASDAQ under the ticker XPRN. So this morning, I pulled the record straight out of the SEC's own database. And it is not XPRN. It is XRPN. XRP, then N. Now, I am not opening with that to beat myself up. I am opening with it because that exact instinct, go pull the primary document, do not trust the summary, is what turned this video into a completely different one from the video I sat down to make. Because EverNorth says artificial intelligence is going to help run its treasury. So I went and read the XRP Ledger itself to find out what that would actually be standing on. And what is down there is not what the headlines say. Let us start with the smaller of the 2 companies, because the sequence here is genuinely odd. T54 Labs is a San Francisco startup founded in early 2025, and it calls itself the trust layer for the agentic economy. We covered T54 in June, so I am skipping the origin story. Here is the odd part. T54 announced its $5 million seed round on the 25th of February. Ripple put money in, so did Franklin Templeton. But the partnership with EverNorth, a billion-dollar treasury company, was announced on the 21st of January, 5 weeks earlier. So a flagship institutional customer signed on before the startup had even told the world it had funding. That is backwards from how this normally goes, and nobody seems to have noticed. Second thing nobody noticed. Every single article about this company quotes one founder, Chandler Fang, who came out of JP Morgan's blockchain unit and then spent years at Ripple. But T54's own team page lists a second founder, Sergio Chan, a Y Combinator alum. 2 founders. The press has only ever met one of them. And then the thing that actually matters. Go to T54's own site today, and there is a line at the bottom stating it is an official launch partner of Mastercard's Agent Pay for machines. That is not a crypto blog saying it. That is the company putting Mastercard's trademarks in its own footer. So who is on the other side of that handshake? EverNorth is trying to build the largest institutional XRP treasury there is, and it is doing it by merging with a listed shell company called Armada Acquisition Corp. 2. It is run by Ashish Birla, who spent years as an executive at Ripple. And here is a detail that gets skipped. Ripple Labs is not just an investor here. Ripple Labs is a named party to the business combination agreement itself. Now, the headlines will tell you EverNorth has gone public. It has not. I pulled the filings from the SEC yesterday, the 30th of July, and the language is flat. Quote, "The registration statement is not yet effective," end quote. Their own January announcement said they expected to close in the first quarter of this year. It is now the end of July, 2 quarters past their own target, with no shareholder vote date on the record yet. And the treasury? Around 473 million XRP, the same number they disclosed for the end of last year. Flat, for about 6 months. And I want to be fair rather than snarky about that, because a company in the middle of an SEC registration is a company with both hands tied. But the token count has not moved. What has moved is the bench and the mileage. They brought in a chief risk officer out of Coinbase and put Ripple's own chief legal officer on the board. And in that same filing from yesterday, their chief operating officer, Meg Nakamura, filed a dispatch from Tokyo, where she had been at WebEx with 15,000 other people. She names real projects. A company in Osaka tokenizing real estate. Mitsui, the trading house, tokenizing precious metals. That is not a press release. That is a company doing the unglamorous work of showing up. So here's the question I actually wanted answered. If you are going to let software move a treasury, the ledger has to have a way to say, you, specifically, may do this one narrow thing and nothing else. That is not a nice to have. That is the whole ball game. And the XRP Ledger has a feature designed for exactly that. It is called Permission Delegation. In plain English, It lets one account hand another account permission to submit one specific type of transaction on its behalf. Payments only, say, and nothing more. Scoped power of attorney written into the ledger. Perfect fit for an agent. So I checked. And not on a blog or a dashboard or somebody's tweet. I opened a direct connection to an XRP Ledger mainnet server and read the amendments object off the validated ledger, which is the ledger's own list of every feature currently switched on. 93 of them are enabled, and permission delegation is not one of them. Neither is batch. Neither is the single asset vault. Neither is the lending protocol, which is the piece the whole yield story usually gets hung on. And the ledger's own public status page says the same thing, which is exactly what you want when you check your work two different ways. Every one of those is sitting in the open for voting column, and permission delegation is on 0% support, not low, 0. So I checked my own work. Every one of those 93 features is identified by a hash of its name. I derived all 93 names independently from the Ledger software's own source code and matched them back. 93 out of 93. Nothing left over, which means the ones that came back missing are genuinely missing. If the delegation piece is not live, what on earth are those AI agents doing right now? T54 runs a public dashboard for this, and rather than quote their press release, I did what we always do here. I read the same page 5 times over 3 minutes and watched the number move. Total agent payments settled on the XRP Ledger through their system, 1,674,000 and counting. And the live rate I measured was about 22 payments a minute, call it 32,000 a day, across 135 merchants. And here's the part I want you to sit with, because it is the honest bit. Watch that live feed and the individual payments are tiny. 1,000th of an XRP, 3,000ths. We are talking about 1/10 of a cent, over and over and over. And a lot of the rows literally say unverified next to them. So what is actually happening is not a treasury being swung around by a robot. It is an AI model paying a fraction of a penny to call another AI model a few dozen times a minute, all day. And T54's own founder is refreshingly straight about this. His words, not mine. He calls it an early production model and says it does not yet represent a mature economy. Real infrastructure starts out boring and cheap and small. It does not start by moving a treasury. So now the good part, which is why the missing piece is missing. Permission delegation is not switched off because nobody got around to it. It was switched off on purpose. A community developer testing on the developer network found a bug in it back in September, where an account could get charged fees before its signature had even been checked. So it was pulled. And then, in February, the batch feature had a far scarier one found in it. Researchers discovered a flaw in how it validated signatures that could have let somebody execute transactions on other people's accounts without ever touching their private keys. That one was caught while it was still in voting. It never reached mainnet, no money was ever at risk, and an emergency release blocked it from activating. Twice now, the thing that would let software spend on your behalf got stopped before it went live, by people whose entire job is to try and break it. That is not a failure. That is the safety system doing precisely what it exists to do. Meanwhile, the pieces that did clear that bar are live and working. Credentials, which lets an institution issue a verifiable attestation to an account without exposing anybody's private information. Permission domains sit on top of that, so a pool can say, only accounts holding this credential may trade here. And multi-signing, which has been there for years, where an account demands several keys before anything moves. That last one is doing the real work today, because it means an agent can hold one signature, and one signature alone gets you nowhere. So where does that leave us? EverNorth is not listed yet, and its own filing from yesterday says so plainly. The treasury has been flat for 6 months, and the ledger feature that would let an agent hold narrow, revocable spending power is still in the workshop. All true. But none of that is the bad news I expected to find. The plumbing that is live is real, and 1.5 million settled payments say so. Mastercard's verifiable intent standard, which attaches cryptographic proof of who authorized a payment and under what limits, went live on this ledger through T54's own software in late July. And the X402 standard those payments ride on moved under Linux Foundation governance this month, with Ripple joining as a premier member alongside Visa, Stripe, Google, and Circle. So the honest picture is a company assembling the last mile before the road is finished. The people building the guardrails are early, and they are boring, and they are usually right. And here is the takeaway I would hand you. When somebody tells you a chain supports something, that word is doing a lot of hiding. Supported in the software and switched on for real money are two completely different things. And one of them you can check yourself for free in about a minute. So if you want to check any of this yourself, here is the action item. Go to XRPL.org and open the Known Amendments page. That is the ledger's own public list of what is switched on and what is still waiting. Look up Permission Delegation. Look up the lending protocol. And before you believe anyone, including me, about what a chain can do, check whether the feature is actually enabled or just written. That one habit will save you from about half the noise in this industry. Every source for this video, every filing, and the raw ledger read are written up on the page linked below, along with the newsletter if you want this kind of thing in your inbox. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Would you let software move money on your behalf? And what would it have to prove to you first? I read every one of them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.